and support them.
So last year they
think?
finished the season strong, remember, and they were 9-8, and we were like, "Oh, this is really promising. This is they're going to become the it team with a good off season. They could really take the next step." And they did exactly that. This year, I mean, the same people are in charge. They don't have quite the resources, but they've got 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, 4 of the first 95 picks, I think it is. They've got to shore up some guys on the roster. They got some decisions to make.
A lot of decisions to make.
But they got a lot of young talent where the learning curve is still pretty steep. And, come back next year and be better. A lot of guys that could be better. So it's as promising, if not more promising, than last offseason, given their baseline expectation. And yet, there are no guarantees. They were able to get better from 2022 to 2023. And now can they get better into 2024? And they're going to be favored in the division. But you know what? The one thing that comes out of yesterday is how important it is to be the 1 seed. Yeah, Detroit fans showed up, but I'd rather they have played San Francisco here.
Would have been nice, but nonetheless, look, they had an amazing season.
Yep.
And it fell short. I don't want to lose sight of that. It doesn't,
It's hard to do today because
it is, because it hurts
really
last night because they had the big lead, had the opportunities, and they let them slip through their fingers. And look, it's going to be haunting them all off season. And we know Dan Campbell well enough as a fan base that he'll use this as motivation for his team. We know that the team responds and that they'll use it for motivation. I think you touched on it earlier. This team is so young that this is going to leave an impression. This isn't something that just, it's fleeting, it'll go. I think because this team is so young, the youth is going to play in their favor. They're pissed, they're hungry, they want to get back and start the season again so they have another chance.
Jeff is next. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, how you doing? More than 60-year fan, and I love the coach, I love the owner, and I don't take anything away from the season except the pain that I'm feeling because of the game yesterday. But what I really called about, you were touching on this a little bit earlier about Dan Campbell making the decision on kick or go for it. And, you got to factor in who are the players. And you did touch on the fact that the kicker we had in there, he certainly was no Jason Hansen. And had we had Jason Hansen, maybe we'd have kicked 3 times yesterday. So the decision is only as good as the players that you got.
Well, they may have, they may not have. I mean, it's hard to think that that Dan Campbell wouldn't have made the same decisions because that's who he was all season long. Now, does he make those decisions all season long because there's not a whole lot of confidence in the kicking? Maybe that's the subtle undertone of this whole thing. But I mean, I still think they need to find a kicker.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's at least an option he didn't have.
So the weird thing, because I have to kind of do the same thing, and I accept Brad Holmes. I'm not sure that Brad Holmes goes into the draft and targets positions. Everything he's ever said and the way he's always operated is he's just taking the best football player. So we're going to get there to 29, and we're going to be looking at the best corner or the best defensive tackle or the best defensive end. And he's just going to, if he follows what he's always done, he's just going to take the best player. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to address their needs, but it might be through free agency. But I was thinking about it today. Based on Brad Holmes' previous behavior, I'm not thinking, well, they're surely taking a defender, either somebody on the D-line or somebody in the secondary at that pick at 29, because that's not how he's operated.
Well, the first 2 years were easy.
Well, you needed everything.
Well, they were not only need everything, but it was easy enough to say, okay, Penei Sewell just fell in our lap. We're going to take Penei Sewell. Oh, Aiden Hutchinson's there too. We'll take him. This past draft was one where, okay, now we see where the real mad genius is and what he wants to do, and he goes out and just finds players. Are they positions of need? Of course they were, because they still had a bunch of positions of need. But to your point, I think that's how it's probably a smart way to address the draft, particularly when you're drafting way at the end of the first round and then at the end of every round because the team was so good this year. Free agency, I think, is a different animal. Free agency is where you can target the specific areas. And last year in free agency, he targeted the secondary and went out and got 3 guys for the secondary. Unfortunately, only one of them really played the whole season. The other 2 guys hardly played at all. C.J. Gardner-Johnson played the playoffs and played the last couple games of the regular season, but we didn't even see Mosley.
That's unfortunate because he's your second corner. Real quick, I'm getting better at kicking the kicker position because I know everyone's thinking about that, of course, today. It's not that easy, man. It kind of takes a lot of luck, to be honest with you. The best kicker in the league right now is probably the Cowboys kicker, and they grabbed him from like the USFL, and he was a soccer player in college. Jake Moody was a third-round pick. He missed one yesterday, and he kicks at that stadium half the year. It ain't easy, you know? And so just to be like, hey, we need a better kicker, it kind of has to fall in your lap sometimes.
Yeah, just get a soccer player.